Today we have our last feature from Between the Rows, which is brought to you by Seed Genetics Direct, and that's Charlie Kail. And Charlie has had the great pleasure or great misfortune, depending on how you look at it, of talking to me throughout the course of the growing season. First, Charlie, can you share with us a little bit about your background? You're over in Carroll County. Tell us what it is you do over there and your involvement with agriculture in the area.
I work for Carrollton Farmers Exchange as a seed consultant, a fertilizer, chemical, even do some feed every now and then. And anything else that needs to be done, drive truck, deliver, just more or less do it, just keep the ball rolling.
And you
Scouts
definitely,
fields.
yeah, you're definitely very involved with all the aspects of agriculture in the area. And agriculture in Eastern Ohio is very different from agriculture in Western Ohio. And we spend a lot of time in Western Ohio, but how are things different in the East?
Well, we start out, we got a lot of rolling hills. We got a lot of steep hillsides that I call the flatland farmers would never even want to put a tractor on. We don't have the deep topsoil. We've got various weather conditions, it's like everybody else. Northeast Ohio is one of the cloudiest places in the country. So our growing degree days aren't as powerful as they are when you go south and west of us. It's just a whole different game over here. We think about a 40-acre field as a great field, and out west, the 40-acre fields are just more or less a pain in the neck. Just the way we are over here. Well, we can make a living at it.
Well, and with the topography out there, there are a lot of challenges folks maybe don't think about in other parts of the state. For example, you have one side of the hill warms up a little faster than the other in the spring, and a number of things like that can make some real challenges as you go through the course of a growing season, right?
Yeah, it is. I remember one time when we were looking at a field, a whole farm actually, that a guy wanted to rent. And I said, if we're going to look at the whole farm, we're going to pull soil samples while we're out there. We only got to pull samples on half the farm. The other half of the farm was still froze. And that farmer said, well, this is good. I can spread manure on this. And I said, well, you're not really supposed to spread manure on frozen ground. But I didn't stay around to see what happened.
Now, it is also a fairly diverse mix of crop ground and livestock pasture operations and hay ground out there, maybe more so than in other parts of the state. What is the makeup of the agriculture in the area?
Well, these hillsides you just can't tear up the whole hillside like we can in the West. You'll lose it. It'll erode out something terrible. And we've had problems the last couple of years. We've had such hard gully washer rains off of these thunderstorms that have really done a lot of damage to the field. I mean, cut ruts 3-4 feet deep in places. And then we got to go back and put them back in, and then 4 months later we get another gully washer and cuts them back out again. We used to be a lot of contours. We've got rid of the contours because we got headers on the combines now that are bigger than the contours we used to farm. Leaving grass strips every 60 feet out across the hill will hold the soil there. At least, well, we might move it a little ways, but at least we didn't get a rut. That's just one of the things we got to deal with. So that's why a lot of this ground won't support corn. When corn's $3 to $4 a bushel, we can't afford to grow corn on it because we can't grow enough bushels on it to break even. It's just, you got to pick and choose where you plant your corn, where you plant your beans, and what you got seeded down in hay. And I'll tell you, there's a fair amount of ground around here that probably ought to be seeded down in hay, and not row cropped. But guys keep trying. So on the average, they do all right because they got some good fields that'll push 200 bushel corn, and they got others that can't hit much more than 100. So they lose money on the 100 and make money on the 200. That's just how we got drug into it over here, I guess, into the grain end of it with the disappearance of the dairy operations.
We have talked some through the growing season about the increasing use of cover crops in the area. You want to talk about that and how it does fit in with the agriculture in the area?
Cover crops are a fantastic thing. I mean, I grew cover crops before people were talking about cover crops. Mine was chickweed, purple dead nettle, and henbit. You know, if you don't put enough herbicides on there to sterilize the ground, and what you don't want to do is do that. You want it enough to control the weeds till we get to harvest. Then those weeds really through the winter don't really do you much damage unless it's mare's tail or something of that caliber. We get that the chickweed and henbit, purple dead nettle are easy to kill in the spring. You hit them with a little bit of gramoxin, and they're going to just disappear. I used to think that was my cover crop. Well, today we're planting a lot of rye, some wheat, and if you're going over top of wheat ground, they're putting a lot of brassicas and stuff in there, trying to break up some of the clay bands. I mean, it's good to run that, cover crop on there. We were still mixing potash and wheat yesterday to get thrown on the bean fields that were just getting harvested. We do a lot of that. It gives us a little easier control. In the big spreaders, we can cover the area faster. And putting it with the potash, they spread it about the same pattern. And, we need the potash on there anyway. So, it's a good mix to put it in there, and it's easier to control the rate of the rye or the wheat when we got it mixed with some more volume.
Also, there's a lot of hay, and we've talked a little bit about that already. How was 2020 for hay production in the area?
It was tough to start with because we were dealing with too wet a ground, and which really running out, creating a lot of compaction with some of these heavier pieces of equipment out there. We're not running old 8-in Fords, that didn't hardly weigh much more than your garden tractor. These bigger pieces of equipment do, a lot of compaction. Then we dried up. So first cuttings weren't too bad. They were, pretty much on an average. Second cutting depends on if you got the first cutting off early, the second cutting wasn't too bad. Third cutting, might as well not even have taken it, but especially if you're running alfalfa, once it gets up and goes to bloom, you got to cut it. There's no other way to make it grow other than to get another set of shoots coming up out of that crown. The third cutting wasn't so good. Fourth and the fifth cutting, the guys that got the fifth cutting, I talked to one and he said tonnage wise, the fifth cutting was my best cutting, which it had heat units, it had moisture, it had clear sunny days, and it cooled down a little bit, so it wasn't quite so hot, and it really put out a good crop. And we got a lot of even grass guys that are just growing grass hay, running 3 cuttings, and our third cutting was really good. Protein level was good on it. We run a 15% protein level on it, so you can't cry about that. Then when you go to sell that hay, you really need to get out there and probe these bales, find out what they really test, what they're worth. Because we had some come in the other day, the tests come back and they were 7 and 8% protein. That's not too good a hay. Mm-hmm. That could get you in trouble on these beef operations if that's all they're getting. At 8% protein creates a protein deficiency in the calf. The calves are going to be born with a compromised immune system. The cow's not going to be producing good quality colostrum, and that makes for dead calves, and that makes for that's a pretty picture. But overall, we got some decent hay out here.
Now, in terms of corn and soybeans, it was a year of where it really depended on where the rain fell and where the rain did not fall, particularly in your part of the state. Can you give me an overview of the 2020 growing season for corn and soybeans? It
was all about moisture. I had one guy said I planted both sides of the road same day, same seed, same fertilizer. He said these fields have been run the same, both sides of the road have been run the same for 10, 15 years. He said, why did the one field yield 30 bushel more than the other? I said, rain. It rained more on that one side than it did the other. He said, oh, you can't. You're just grabbing at straws. I said, no, I'm not. I said, I've been in places where it's rained. I could see it raining. 100 yards away from me, it's pouring down rain, and I'm standing there in the dry. I said, that's all it takes is one streak like that up through there, and it can make that kind of a difference. And you get into rows. I was into some corn yesterday. I was walking, and the height of the corn was anywhere from knee high to 7 foot. It was all about moisture. It was on shale ground. That shale ground just dried up. There just wasn't any moisture for that corn to grow. Corn is a one-shot deal. You got one time that it's going to pollinate, it's going to grain fill, and that's it. A soybean, it gets halfway through its growing season, and you get a really bad dry spell like that, it'll quit putting on pods, even abort some more, and then it gets a shot of rain at the end, and you'll get a whole bunch of nice looking pods at the top of the plant. And that's basically what we got. Some of our later planted soybeans really did good, a lot better than we thought they would compared to where the early planted ones were. I had a guy told me that he was running. I asked him, how's his corn running? He says from 11 bushel to 240. And he said he can be in the same pass with combine. And he said you could throw from one end from the 11 to the 240 with a baseball and hit them both. He said it just what moisture. If you got moisture, you got corn. You don't have moisture, didn't have corn.
So last question, what do you want folks in the rest of the state to know about agriculture in Eastern Ohio?
We're still alive down here. We can still make money. We can make a living on it. We thank them for their used combines when they bring them back, because that's where most of the used ones come from for the West. Now and then somebody will buy a new one around here, but a lot of them come in. It's just a rougher way. You gotta drive more miles to get your acres gathered up. But we're not paying the money that they're paying in the West for acreage either. I mean, our rents around here are substantially less. And I even know guys that are renting their ground out, and all you got to do is plant it in corn and beans and keep the P and K and the lime up, and you can have it. Not $1 worth of rent coming back, but they're getting their CAUV, so they're not, they're getting taxed as farm ground, which it is. And so there's even some of those out there. I know that makes it easier that, that 120 bushel yield will make you some money when you didn't pay any rent on it. So
yeah,
you've got to look at. So we're all over the board. We just, there's fantastic ground out here, and there's some ground out here we shouldn't be planting.
Well, I've really enjoyed getting to talk with you all season long, and it's always nice to get some insights from the eastern part of the state, because things really are so much different over there in many occasions than they are in the other parts of the state. And it's great to get an update. Thanks to Charlie Kail again for putting up with us all season long and joining us here today for this video that wraps up the 2020 growing season and Between the Rows, that was brought to you by Seed Genetics Direct. And you can find more from them at seedgeneticsdirect.com.